This podcast is all about performance coaching, lifestyle design and NLP. I'm Tony Wrighton. This is Zestology, the podcast all about health, mindset and biohacking. And I'm in Portugal. It's very early in the morning and I'm out for a walk. And frankly, it's beautiful. And the locals have been complaining that it's a bit cold for this time of year, but I'm wearing shorts and it feels pretty good to me. As I like to sort of do two things at once and get as much exercise as possible whilst recording this podcast, I'm walking up a hill while recording today's podcast intro. And Charlene Gisele is one of the best. If your life isn't quite where you'd want it to be, this is the second of two life transformation podcasts that I've put out in the last couple of weeks. Paul Shepherd last week, who's one of the UK's top mindset coaches, and Charlene Gisele today, who travels all around the world doing slight distinction, performance coaching, more with professionals, but as you'll see, she is the real deal. And if you're interested in my own transformation program, I will reveal more at the end of the podcast. Reason being that I did a bit of a soft launch on this and it's great and there's only 2 spots left. So I haven't really talked about it yet, but it's underway. It is called Changemakers. There is more information on my website, but for now, it's going to carry on my transformation theme on this podcast with Charlene Gisele.
Charlene, you okay?
I'm fantastic. So good to see you again.
Good to see you too. Have you been designing your lifestyle today?
I have been designing my lifestyle, Tony. I was just enjoying the sunset actually before this recording. So sunset was at 6:30 here in Bali. So catching those orange hues and looking the sun.
Lovely.
It's just wonderful. Optimizing my circadian rhythm.
Yeah. And I've sort of I've been noticing you've been posting quite a bit about lifestyle design recently. And I thought it'd be quite interesting to start with that because I've obviously made some lifestyle design decisions recently, moved to Portugal, trying to work less and getting to see more. Tell me the thinking behind it, what you're actually doing over there at the moment then.
Yeah, great question. Well, my mission in life is to harmonize work and life. I don't believe so much in the word balance per se. I believe in integration and harmonization. And the way I do it is quite strategic, if I'm being completely candid. You know, I'm a businesswoman, I'm an entrepreneur, I lead a company. So I reverse engineer my life according to where I know that I can strategically serve my clients at the highest level, but also where I know I want to spend most of my time. So if I give you an example, I like winter sun very much. So I make sure that around the December, January, February mark, I have events and retreats organized well in advance with my clients in Singapore, with my clients in Asia, with my clients in Australia, so that I can serve them, be close to them, meet them one-to-one, meet them in person, really foster that connection while having the time of my life.
Yeah.
And then come European summer, I spend most of my time around France, where I also have a lot of clients, around the UK, around Spain, around Italy, where I also very much like to spend a lot of my time and can serve my client. So it's being a global citizen, but it's also making sure that I don't only do online coaching, which I think as much as it's extraordinary to be able to serve at a global level, you do want to see the person face to face. Nothing replaces face to face, in my opinion. So I make sure that wherever my clients are, there will be a point in our working relationship where they will meet me. That's something that I commit to every single client.
Yeah. It's interesting. I've worked with people, really good therapists, psychologists, coaches, who insist that it is as good doing work online as it is face to face. But I personally agree. I think there's just a magic that comes from meeting people face to face. I mean, you and I first met. Did we first meet face to face?
We did.
Yeah,
yes. I think the first time it was in London different. In a co-working.
Yeah, it was exactly. Soho Works in London. It's just different, isn't it? You sort of feel like, oh, we're actually friends now. We've actually met. We've got a connection. It's different if you've only met online. But I do work with people who insist that it's just as good online.
It's good for convenience and it's wonderful and you can use the tools, but there is a trust element. There we are creatures that mimic, and there's things that cannot be translated online, especially doing, hypnotherapy or NLP timeline. When I can see a client's tiny facial expression, or I can actually see the way they breathe. Are they doing a belly breath, or is there more tension on their shoulder? I've been trained to scan all those micro movement and this micro information. That tells me ton. Now, of course, I can detect quite a lot of that information online, but I can't see nervous tics or the way they move their legs, and that just gives me a more colorful impression of how I can best serve that person.
Yeah, definitely. The NLP stuff, there's obviously so much of NLP is non-verbal communication, isn't it? Absolutely. So there's certainly, this might almost sound a bit woo-woo, but there's, as well as the non-verbal, we in NLP, we get, for example, trained to look at people's skin tone, don't you? Like, when there's a change in skin tone, that can signify a change in state. Obviously, a change in breathing, which you might not get, and a change in body language, which you might not get if you're only looking at someone's head. But the woo-woo bit is there's an energy, isn't there, that you just don't get in the same way when you're looking at someone on a screen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it fosters a relationship for the long term. I really like to engage in long-term relationships with my clients, and it makes for something special. It really does.
Yeah, that's really good. I love that. I forgot that you're an NLPer as well.
I am, yes, and NLP trainer. So there you go.
Great.
I did my master NLP.
That's brilliant, because I am actually going to be doing I trained as an NLP trainer years ago, but I've never run an NLP practitioner training. Simply because I was working in TV and I was too busy. And now that I'm focusing sort of more wholly on this sort of coaching side and the writing side, I want to do an NLP practitioner training this year. So what I'm doing is I'm cherry picking all the people I know who are absolutely brilliant at this stuff to do a little mini training as part of the training. So I might be coming to you and saying, do you fancy doing a little guest spot?
Please do. I would love that.
You should do the lifestyle design section.
Pick each other's NLP's brain.
Yeah. So, and the great thing is you can do that in summer with your European clients. And then in winter, if you do need to be doing a little bit more video stuff, you can. And at the moment, you're in Bali. I mean, what a life.
At the moment, I am, yes. And, if we get more granular, so I gave you the overview in terms of the globe and sort of worldwide travel. But if we get a little bit more analytical about how I design my day, I'm also a firm believer in what I call eat the frog, meaning, although I'm French, so I feel like this expression doesn't work very well because I actually liked eating the frogs. But if you're not French, you typically don't like eating frogs. And so this theory comes from the idea that if you do the thing in the morning that you're most likely not to do, then you're good to go. And I'll make a confession here. As much as I would like to describe myself as fairly fit and healthy now, that's certainly not the previous version of me. And my default mode is intellectual endeavors and work fast. That's how I was programmed from my parents, my conditioning. So my default system, unless and until I have measures in place that are bulletproof, is wake up, rush into work mode, right? That's how I operated for years and years and years. And that's how I hit a wall and how I burnt out. Because I would just literally jump out of bed and into my laptop or onto my phone. And because I've gotten to know myself so well, and through coaching and NLP and hypnosis, I put buffer measures in place, not because I'm a superhuman, but because I've learned not to trust myself. So I do the things that I'm most likely to neglect first thing in the morning. So I would have my 15 minutes moment of, be it meditation, breath work. And I'm not going to sit and tell you it's 2 hours, Tony. We're busy. It's 15 minutes, but that's non-negotiable. And then I'll do my run or my stretch or something that, again, I know I'm likely to neglect because I'm busy, right?
Yeah.
Once that's, and forgive me for using the expression out of the way, but once that's done, I know I feel so much better and I have this huge boost in energy and it resets my cortisol level and it optimizes my circadian rhythm. And then I can serve and I can be on work mode with my clients benefiting from the best version of me. And that's really made a huge difference of my life operating this way. So I reverse engineering what I'm most likely to not do, and I do that first, and then I do the rest.
Yeah, that's excellent. And then I always notice when I chat to you that as well as sort of optimizing your own environment and lifestyle, you're very focused on providing the best possible outcome for your clients and the people that you work with. You use that word serve quite a lot. And I think that's great because I see quite a lot of, I've been thinking about online trainings a lot recently because I'm going to be offering this practitioner training. And I think that I see a lot of offerings whereby people say, hey, it's great, live your best life, get money and only do sort of 3 hours a day. And they don't actually talk about what you're doing for the client, which is the really important thing. And I know you're always very focused on serving your clients. And I admire that, actually.
Well, I think it stems from my past life. I was a lawyer, and really my call to becoming a lawyer was this idea of being of service. It's one of those professions that's very much a vocation. And, growing up, little girls maybe want to be princesses and plays with rainbow and unicorns. I wanted to be a lawyer. You see, my idea of what I could do and contribute to the world was advocacy and serving clients.
Yeah.
So it comes from a place of actually being deeply connected with my value. And my number one value is making an impact, is how can I live someone's life a little better than it was before they spoke with me. And that was my motto back when I was a lawyer. And that's still the same as a coach. And actually, if I look at the deepest value that are in common in my past career and my current career is very much that notion of service. And I'm glad that you pointed that out, because very often people, particularly in the coaching industry, can almost have too much of a salesman hat on. And it's the idea of, the program and doing this and doing that. And of course, we all need to think about business and entrepreneurship. But the idea is, how can I have the most impact leveraging the best tools and have that bespoke, well-curated method that's really going to make a difference for now and for good. So that's really my measure of success as well, is I don't like quick fixes. I don't like magic bullets. And in fact, one of the things that really turns me off if I do a strategic call or a chemistry call with someone is if someone is looking for that magic bullet, they're probably not going to end up working with me, because I like to think about the sustainability of the measures that are being put in place. And I think a lot of us, particularly type A, can have a bit of a shiny object attraction, right? I want the coolest thing, the fastest solution that's going to help me now. What I'm most interested in is what's going to help you for good. What is really truly going to stick long when I'm gone. And that's really serving from a place of authenticity and thinking about the legacy, because you want your clients to become the best versions of yourself without you in the picture.
Yeah. With a quick fix as well. I mean, the thing is that, with any form of coaching, what initially presents as the problem isn't necessarily the underlying problem. And that takes a little while to get the layers of the onions off and peel back to it.
I'm so glad you've mentioned that, because it's very common for executives to say, oh, the biggest challenge that I have currently in my life is business and work, and I'm so tired. And actually, you dig deep and deeper and deeper, and you peel through the layer, and you find out that they're navigating a toxic relationship, or actually they neglected their mindset for many years, or they have very negative self-talk. And then you start to look into the things that perhaps they didn't even have awareness of as being the root cause, as you say. And then that's when it gets really interesting.
Yeah. Is that a Bali dog I can hear barking in the background?
Yes, I'm really sorry.
It's all right. I'm getting a little flavor of you in Bali. I like it. It's great. Don't worry.
I'm really apologetic.
No,
I was
don't worry.
considering muting myself, but yes.
No, I like it. It's a little flavor. I'm living vicariously through you in Asia in that lovely heat right now. Don't worry about it at all.
There you go.
Yeah. So I know that you do and I've obviously been following, it's 3 years since we first did an Instagram Live and we first met.
Indeed.
And I've been following in terms of what you do with your performance coaching. And I wonder, how much is it that you work with people in the legal industry, and how much is it that you work with generalized people from all different walks of life? And has that changed over the last 3 years?
That's a really good question. I work with professional service providers. That's really how you could best define it. Initially, very much started as quite a niche legal industry-based coaching boutique, very much based on the fact that I'm a lawyer. So I think, there is a natural thing that happens when two lawyers meet. There is chemistry and we understand each other's mind and we have the same background and we went through the same hardship with law schools and law firms. But as I navigated the legal world, it really occurred to me that actually there is a lot of burnout in the insurance industry, in the finance industry, in the hedge fund industry. And over time, perhaps something quite interesting, naturally, you start to generalize and then you laser down. The opposite happened to my coaching practice. So I started very much on a narrow focus with the law, and through recommendation and words of mouth and a lot of direct referrals, it's grown into predominantly now finance, hedge funds, investments, and insurance, as well as banking.
Yeah. Individuals or companies?
Both. So I do mostly B2B now rather than B2C, whereby I work directly with the companies. So the retreats that I was mentioning in Asia are typically run by companies that send their executives or their partners on the Wellbeing journey, and they want a facilitator or a keynote speaker to look after their executives or their partners.
Great. Very good. Very good.
Do you know if you're getting enough magnesium? Because 4 out of 5 people aren't. Interrupting the podcast for one moment to say, this is a big problem because magnesium is involved in more than 300 biochemical reactions in your body. And right now, I want to talk to you about the most common signs to look out for that could indicate you're magnesium deficient. So, are you irritable or anxious? Do you struggle with insomnia? Do you experience muscle cramps or twitches? Do you have high blood pressure? Are you sometimes constipated? There are loads of other symptoms, but those are just a few questions. And here's what most people don't know. Taking any magnesium supplement won't solve your problem. I've been trying out a few new electrolyte brands recently, and frankly, I've been shocked at how many of them use really suboptimal types of magnesium. That is why, in terms of magnesium, I exclusively recommend Magnesium Breakthrough. It's the only full spectrum magnesium supplement with 7 unique forms of magnesium that your body can actually use and absorb. If you go to bioptimizers.com/zestology and use the code zestology10, you can get gifts with your purchase this month, up to 2 travel size bottles of Magnesium Breakthrough, so you can take it with you on your travels as well, especially if you go somewhere hot later on this year. So if you go to bioptimizers.com/zestology, this is a limited time offer. Use that code zestology10. That works all over the world, works on the UK site as well, which is bioptimizers.co.uk. Remember to use that code zestology10, and remember, it is really important to make sure you're getting enough magnesium, but magnesium that you can actually absorb. That's it. Back to the show.
And then I just think it's so interesting the way the world of wellness has changed over the years. I mean, when I started at Sky in 2006, and I've said this before on the podcast, I was very much the weird one who was into all that self-help stuff, and a bit of an outlier. And then over the years, more and more of the people who I felt had looked down at me a little bit over the years started to sort of seek me out one by one and say, Tony, you know that stuff you were talking about with meditation? I sort of feel like I might need that myself. And attitudes have changed. I can imagine it's a very sort of traditionally male world that you're operating in, traditionally sort of a world that hasn't necessarily prioritized wellness. I mean, my dad worked in finance, and I know he was leaving the house at 5 a.m. and getting back at 9 at night. But it's interesting to hear how attitudes in that quite traditional area are changing.
Well, I might make you laugh here, but a lot of the shift around the finance industry specifically has been happening through a notorious show. I don't know if you've seen it or not, Billions.
I've heard of it.
Right. And so it's a show that actually features a performance coach that works specifically with these amazing financiers to really help them with their performance and their mindset. And that actually, oddly enough, has opened up the industry's eyes or mind on the importance of coaching, because it is based on the true story of, well, the sort of narrative of the story has been heavily gone with creativity input, but initially it is based on the methodology of a coach that worked in New York on Wall Street. So it's interesting how movies can also really influence industry. And it's also now across the globe, you can see interest in companies sponsoring health summit or health organization. And I also believe that the pandemic has really opened the eyes to the notion of wellness. And perhaps something a bit bleak to talk about, but I think it is important to talk about, is during the pandemic, people for the first time started to develop a relationship with mortality, which we haven't done really at a global scale before the pandemic. And when one begins to think about their own mortality or contemplate it, one becomes interested in longevity. So there is this fascinating psychological thing that happens in the human's mind when you start contemplating death. You start to think about how you want to live.
Yeah.
And there it becomes really interesting because law firms and companies started to seek programs that would improve their employees' productivity, yes, but also well-being, so that they could prevent burnout at an organizational scale.
Mm-hmm. And then when it comes to performance coaching, everything that you're doing can seem counterintuitive. Again, I sort of go back to my time in the world of TV, but I would sometimes sort of slope off because the presenters had changing rooms in a sort of quiet corner of the building. I'd say, right, guys, I'm going to go off and get changed. And I'd go and have a little sleep in one of the changing rooms. But it was such a fast-paced, intense sort of environment that if I told the production team that I was going off for a sleep, they'd have been horrified. But actually, I knew that was the best thing for me to perform at my best. It just wasn't culturally acceptable to tell other people. So I had to lie and say I was going to go off and do something important.
What a shame. And I'm so glad that you shared this story, because if we look now at big tech company, particularly if you start looking at the Silicon Valley, they have sleeping pods and meditation rooms. Is this super brilliant? I mean, if we look at where ideation stems from, one knows that genius mind, if you want to call it that, of all walks of life throughout history have never come up with genius ideas when they were work, busy, rush.
Yeah.
People have beautiful, inspirational ideas and become the best leader that they can become when they are in deep state of relaxation. But that's a really hard message to hit home for a busy executive, because we operate under this idea that productivity equals rush and rush equals success.
Yeah.
But actually it's, like you said, optimizing your sleep, taking this nap, taking a meditation break, taking a breathwork break. Now that's going to be really interesting, because what comes after it will be a more rational approach, a more stoic approach, more relaxed approach, and actually will foster better leadership across the whole organization. Stress is highly contagious. So if a leader or a worker is stressed, they are going to contaminate the whole team.
That's so true. Yeah. But it's hard even, I mean, I do this with my clients and I talk about it on the podcast all the time. And I know it's the right thing to do for my life. I know every day I need a really good workout and a meditate and a lot of just walking around doing nothing. And actually, I've tried to build in the front end of my day. The first bit of my routine is stimulating creativity by just going for a walk with no headphones in, no nothing, just having a think about the big problems. But I still sort of struggle to justify that to myself. I'm like, I've got so much to do. I should be in front of my laptop. Still, I sort of have to really work through why it's important every day, and I still don't always do it.
I think it's fair to say that we all have this struggle, but what you have, which most people don't, which is amazing that you share, Tony, is you have the awareness. And yes, you might have this little busy demon knocking at your door.
Oh, I've got that.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
So do I. It's still a massive, when I talked about the measures that I put in place, again, I put them in place because I believe in systems. Because if I don't have a system, my default mode is going to be entertaining the busy demons, and go back to rushing and adrenaline, which you get hooked on, you get addicted to.
Yeah.
So it's this, going back to NLP, which I know we both share a passion for. I find some of the most effective way to anchor states of relaxation are to either choose states or colors. So for me, I know that blue has a really huge impact on my state of relaxation. So I will have moments or windows where I intentionally do, I know again, it's going to sound a bit woo, but sky gazing or looking at the cloud or looking at the horizon and scanning the horizon. And from a neuroscientific standpoint as well, when you engage in lateral movement and you're not narrow focused, you can actually feel more relaxed. So doing little things like that, if someone is listening and wondering how to practically do this in their day-to-day life, choose a color that makes you feel relaxed and anchor that color into something that you can see that is in your environment. And if you can't access the sky or nature because you're in an office, then you can look at pictures, and that works really well.
Yeah, absolutely. I have had a lot of success with anchoring over the years. Are there any other NLP techniques that are sort of real go-to for you? I mean, I love a reframe, and I find the NLP pattern interrupt, something that I use a lot with people and with myself as well. And I just wonder if there's anything in particular that's, because everyone has their favorites when it comes to neuro-linguistic programming.
Yes, I love that you talk about that. I personally like to put filters in place. So the way I do it is I notice when a trigger is about to happen, and I put a little anchor that would be typically either kinesthetic or visual or auditory. So you've mentioned different pattern interrupt. One of my pattern interrupt is what I call email anxiety. I'm sure that perhaps you can relate to.
Yes, of course.
You have a certain client's name or you have a certain deadline, and you know that when you check that email, you feel the rise of the anxiety. What I've done is I have selected and curated a playlist that makes me feel very relaxed, and I've taken a snippet of that playlist. That's about 30 seconds to 1 minute. And when I see that email anxiety is on its way, instead of letting it rise, I pattern interrupt by noticing and actually playing that music for, say, 30 seconds to 1 minute that I already put in my playlist. And I really remember the state I want to choose that I've previously anchored to that piece of music, and then go back. And then intention as well. I really believe that the power of words are very, very often neglected. But having this, whether it's a motto or whether it's, again, a pattern interrupt. So I use Post-it notes and I flip them. So if I feel anxious, I actually take a pen and paper and I write down, I feel anxious. And then I flip it and I write down the state that I want to feel instead. There is no shame in admitting that you're anxious. I an NLP coach, and I'm a performance coach, and I navigate anxiety 10 times a day on a good day, right? I mean, let's just call a cat a cat. Of course you would navigate anxiety. But the difference between me now and me back when I burnt out is I have systems in place to catch the anxiety so that I only feel it in appropriate times at appropriate measures. So before I ride that wave and get caught in the tide of the anxiety, I notice it, I label it, and I flip on the other side of the post-it what I want to choose instead.
Very good. Love that. And I think one of the real powerful bits of that is you're not sort of trying to push it away. You're acknowledging it. And that is you don't want to use NLP to just sort of deny how you're feeling. You want to say, and I sort of noticed this, especially with my son, when he's feeling anxious about something. If you sort of say, oh, it'll be all right, mate, you'll be fine. It just doesn't resonate with him. But when I say you're feeling very anxious about this, aren't you? It makes him feel better because it makes him feel heard. And then he can start to sort of release anxiety. So, yeah.
Yeah. Another one that might be useful that I use a lot because anger, surprise, surprise, was an emotion that I had to work through a lot with my NLP coaches, and I still work through, is, again, using the post-it system. If I feel angry, I flip it and I say, I am energized about. So when I'm angry about X, Y, Z, I'll say, I am angry, and then I flip it and I choose to reframe anger for energy because anger is energy. So I say, I will channel that energy into, and then I make it very directional and I use it as an executive plan. So then it's become my executive summary for the day. And actually my anger then becomes my trampoline for my executive planning, which is amazing.
Wow, that's great. Oh, love this. It's the first time we've had a proper geek out about NLP, and it's really enjoyable. Now, I've asked you before, but actually, maybe I haven't asked you before. Have you been on my podcast before? I've been on your podcast, haven't I?
Yes.
But I don't know if you've been on mine. So I always ask one book that you'd recommend and one tip for living with more energy and vitality. And so what is one book that sort of had an impact on you? It could be anything. It could be fiction, non-fiction, business, work or play, really.
Okay, that's a really good question. The Power of Now is a very good book. I would also, just generally speaking, recommend especially highly intellectual type A professionals listening to this to indulge in a little bit of science fiction. Put away your business books at night. Put away, dare I say, the news? I'm sorry. I feel like I shouldn't say that to a former broadcaster. But
no, I'll put away the news. And I have to. I'm such a news junkie. I have to do it myself as well to retain a sense of sanity.
We all are, right? But at that precious time when you want to engage your imagination, and again, without citing title, I would say children's books are fantastic. Just grab a book that will actually engage your imagination and indulge in a story that has fantasy and where you're going to see color and hear sound and play fictional character. And to add a layer to that, try to pick a book that isn't made into a movie or which you haven't seen the movie of, because then it ruins the imagination component of it. So instead of giving you a title, I'm giving you a manual instruction because maybe that's my NLP. I'll tell you the how, not the what. So pick something that is science fiction and you haven't seen the movie and picture that with your imagination.
Very good, very good. And then what about one tip for living with more energy and vitality? Do you go for a swim in the sea in Bali every day?
I would love to say that, but it's not realistic because not everybody can go and live in Bali for a few months. So instead, I'm going to say to make sure that whatever happens in the day, whatever the weather is, there is no such thing as bad weather. There is bad equipment or bad clothing. So just go out. If it's cold, well, be cold. If it's hot, be hot. That's what nature intended. And do things every day that make you uncomfortable and that are hard. And I'm not talking just about intellectual endeavor. Do things that you don't feel like doing. And specifically when you don't feel like doing them, do them twice more.
Charlene, love it. It's so nice to talk to you. Where can people find out more about what you do? Maybe sign up for some performance coaching or just see all your content, which I love following.
Well, first they should listen to our podcasting episode in my new podcast. So that would be the first place. I would love to.
That was great. Yeah. And you really, I felt like you prepared extremely well for me. And I felt like I'd been given a really good interview at the end of that hour. It was excellent. Thank you.
Oh, well, you've most definitely returned the favor, Tony. So my podcast would be a great place for people to connect with me. So it's the Charlene Gisele Show, and I'm looking forward to connect.
All right, Charlene, really good to talk to you. Enjoy the rest of your trip.
I will. Thanks.
That lifestyle design is agreeing with you. And the dogs of Canggu as well. Take care. Thanks, Charlene.
Thank you to Charlene, and thank you for listening to Zestology. I'm still walking up the hill. It's absolutely glorious here. This is the reason that we moved, to get outdoors as much as possible. Even when it's a bit chilly, got shorts on, but I've got a gilet on. But lots of time to spend outside here in Portugal, and that all ties in with my own personal themes, which are the themes that I talk about on this podcast as well: health, mindset and biohacking. So I've done 2 podcasts and 2 on transformation, and I'm very pleased to announce that I have done a soft launch of my new, what you might call it, high ticket program. It's called Change Makers, and it's all about transforming your life and transforming the life of other people. And it is 6 months, basically one-on-one or one on a few with me. Very small group, there's only 2 spots left. And what we're doing is we're using the skills of NLP. You're getting to sort of level 2 level NLP training as well on this course. And you are totally focused on your own life transformation. My success metric is whatever you want to transform in your life, whether we actually make that happen or not. So it's been brilliant so far. It's really sort of exciting actually, because the sort of thing that we're approaching is big life transformation. Exactly the thing for which neuro-linguistic programming, which you might have heard me bang on about a few times, is absolutely perfect for. I suppose I'm a bit of an expert in NLP and lifestyle transformation because here I am in Portugal, having upended our lives over the last year or so to get here, and used a lot of NLP and mindset techniques in the process, and now I'm doing that with other people as well. So if you would like to apply, it's not a given, we're not taking everybody, because we've got a lovely small group and I want it to stay very, very select. But if you go to tonywrighton.com/changemakers, we can set up a chat, and I'd love to know a little bit more about you. I'm guessing that some of the people that will come on this program will be people who've been listening to this podcast for a while. Well, you probably know sort of a little bit about me. You know, there's elements of biohacking in what I'll talk about on this podcast and on the program as well. There's elements of mindset, there's elements of health, and there's elements of really getting to grips with some of the deep skills of neuro-linguistic programming. So it's tonywrighton.com/changemakers if you want more information on that. Love to help you transform stuff. Okay, that is pretty much it. Thanks, as always, to my podcast partners, Magnesium Breakthrough, who've just they've signed up for another year. Oh, it's great to work with them. And a bit of a panic in our household here in Portugal because we ran out of Magnesium Breakthrough the other day, so I had to get on the website, use the discount code Zestology10 and order myself some more. And if you want to do the same, then it's bioptimizers.com/Zestology. And in fact, that discount code Zestology10, as you may have heard me say before on this podcast, doesn't just work for Magnesium Breakthrough, but all of the Bioptimizers products. So that's Zestology10. And I mean, I know I've said it before, but Magnesium Breakthrough really is absolutely brilliant for sleeping deeply at night, feeling more relaxed, calming your muscles and your mind. And I've noticed since we've run out, I get this weird, how can I describe it? It can only be described as sort of slightly jerky legs at night. So I'm looking forward to the new bottle coming very soon. Zestology10, and that code works all around the world. So if you're in the UK, it's a different site, it's bioptimizers.co.uk, but you can use the same discount code for 10% off all Bioptimizers products. That is it. I've almost walked up the hill. Just got one last bit to go, which is the steepest bit. So I might be a bit out of breath if I carry on talking. So I'm going to say goodbye. Thanks for listening to this podcast this week. Do come and say hello if you're interested in my Changemakers project, which got underway a couple of weeks ago. Soft launch. Very excited about that. And I guess when I think about the skills of neuro-linguistic programming and NLP, it's always the life transformation stuff that is the stuff that appeals the most, and I sort of enjoy the most actually. So I'm really excited by this program. I get a little jolt of anticipation at the fact we've got our meeting tomorrow at 10:30, and again, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great. All right, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.